Well, hey everyone, I just wanted to take a few minutes to share with you some reflections over this very unique and special day. Today is Saturday, April 11th, and it is the day between Good Friday and Easter Sunday. And we don't talk about this a lot in the church and in Christianity and our faith. We don't really teach on this a whole lot, so I want to share a couple thoughts and reflections about what the Bible says about what occurred on this day, but also what the Bible says that we should do. And I want to kind of encourage you guys with today. So wherever you're at today, maybe it's just kind of a normal Saturday for you. I would love for it to be a unique Saturday for you of celebration and reflection. So let me just start with simply, what does the Bible say? What do the gospel accounts say about Saturday? Well, the Bible tells us that on Friday evening, Jesus was died and placed in a tomb. And on Saturday, doesn't give us a lot of information. Luke 23 says that it was the Sabbath, and so they rested, which is a great thing. Mark 16 talked about the women after sundown of the Sabbath going out and buying spices to anoint Jesus after his death while he was buried. And Matthew 27 talks about the Pharisees and religious leaders going and asking for extra guards in fear that that he would rise again, or his followers would go and try to steal the body. So that's really what the gospel accounts tell us. But what I would assume is based on the fact that they were celebrating Sabbath, which was a religious day of rest for the Jewish people, a rest from all work, rest from any kind of going out and about, even going out and buying spices. So this was a day dedicated to reflection and rest. And I believe they would have spent time doing that. But it would have been special because they would have been reflecting over a lot of different things. The 3-year run of the ministry, the public ministry of Jesus has just ended. Years that they spent with him, where he was a friend to them and a great teacher and confidant. Jesus has now died at the hands of many different people, but put to death by the Romans on the cross. And they were probably scared, confused, not knowing what to do next. They thought they understood where this was going, and Jesus had said a lot of things, but they didn't truly understand. And they would have sat there reflecting over the years spent with Jesus and not knowing what his death means, probably feeling that everything is over and has come to an end. But they would have also reflected over things like Jesus said, like, destroy the temple and I'll rebuild it in 3 days. Or later in the book of John, where he says, greater love has no one for this than someone laid down his life for his friends. And I think they would have reflected back over a lot of these statements of Jesus, statements that they didn't really understand the first time. And maybe some clarity would have started to come to their mind as they spent time just sitting and thinking back to the times they spent with Jesus. So the question is, if that's what his disciples and followers were doing, they were participating in their normal Sabbath, reflecting over the times with Jesus. What was Jesus doing? Well, the Bible doesn't directly say, but we do know a few things. Number one, he was not, number one, he was dead. He was not just sleeping off his injuries or getting ready to perform the best escape act of all time. Jesus was dead, and we see that by the piercing of his side while on the cross. He was dead and not sleeping. But we also see that his death conquered death. Matthew 27, starting in verse 50, says this. I want to read it. This is the account of the death of Jesus. And Jesus cried out again with a loud voice and yielded up his spirit. And behold, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom, and the earth shook and the rocks were split. The tombs were also opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And coming out of their tombs after this resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many. When the centurion of those who were with him, keeping watch over Jesus, saw the earthquake and what took place, they were filled with awe and said, truly, this was the Son of God. And we see clearly that his death conquered death, even so much that the curtain of the temple, the veil of the temple was torn, which is symbolic of the separation between man and the holiness of God. Jesus conquered that and brought us into a right relationship. But also the fact that those who were dead in tombs were raised to life and wandering around the city. We don't know a lot about this, but it is a clear picture of the power of Jesus' death, conquering death. I love what John Mark McMillan's song, Death in His Grave, says, and this is the chorus. On Friday a thief, on Sunday a king, laid down in grief, but woke with the keys of hell on that day, firstborn of the slain, the man Jesus Christ laid death in his grave. That is what his death accomplished. And what do we see? We hear these terms about the firstborn of the slain and this concept of Jesus holding the keys of hell. And some people believe that he went to a physical hell, which we believe in, and actually took the actual keys, because this is actually what the Bible says, and I want to give you this information. Revelation 1:5, first of all, says, "In Jesus Christ, the faithful witness, the firstborn of the dead, and the ruler of the kings of earth." And John says also in his vision in verse 17, "When I saw him, I fell at his feet as though dead, but he laid his right hand on me, saying, 'Fear not, I am the first and the last and the living one. I died, and behold, I am alive forevermore, and I have the keys of death and Hades.'" So we don't know exactly what that means. Is it a metaphor? Is that somewhere that Jesus actually went? We're not sure. But we do know is that Jesus has conquered death. And the picture that the Bible gives us in the book of Revelation is that he holds the keys to death. It's Jesus who holds them, no one else. This is not a fair fight. Jesus has won the battle on our behalf. And that's why we sing, "You have no rival, you have no equal," because it's not a fair fight. There are no equals in this battle. And one more verse I want to read, one of my favorites, Colossians 2:13-15. "And you who were dead in your trespasses and the uncircumcision of your flesh, God made alive together with him, having forgiven us all of our trespasses, by canceling the record of debt that stood against us with its legal demands. This he set aside, nailing it to the cross. He disarmed the rulers and authorities and put them to open shame by triumphing over them in him." This is what Jesus accomplished on the cross. This is what some believe Jesus did on the Saturday, the day before his resurrection. His death, his being in the grave, was conquering death, stealing the keys to hell. And he's done that on our behalf. But I want to encourage you, like the disciples, to make this a day of rest, make this a day of reflection over the words of Christ, and that he had promised to fulfill not only his death, but also his resurrection. Because he lives, we also can live. He is the resurrection, and in him is life eternal. I love you guys. I hope this day is blessed for you. Looking forward to celebrating you with you this Easter Sunday.